Thank you for the invitation. It's great to be here. I haven't participated in any Boldic activities apart from something in Copenhagen years ago. I have been in a project with Riga Technical University that was about technology transfer some years ago, so I've been at the Technical University before, but it's great to be back here. I've been asked to say something about trends and tendencies within learning and technology, and I'll try to do that. And the background for that is that I come from a university college called University College Zealand, a university of applied science. We are situated on the island of Zealand, and I don't know how many knows the island of Zealand, but it's the place where Copenhagen is. But outside Copenhagen is the rest of the island of Zealand, and that's something different. And we are sort of the local university for that area, and we have a lot of different educations. We have a research program which I'm head of, and we have around 30 researchers doing research, and half of them are mostly researching in topics like the connection between lifelong learning and digital technologies and so on. So I'm head of that, so that is what I'm doing at home. And then today I'll talk about masses and materiality, meaning what is mass education evolving into, and also something about materiality. And the thing about masses will very much deal with the phenomenon of MOOCs, and the latter part, materiality, it's about robots. And I haven't bought a robot, but I have a picture of a robot. The robot is called Zeno. It's American. It's a real American technology. It works sometimes, and it's very complicated to repair. We also have a French robot. It also works sometimes. It's more smart, but it's very difficult to repair. It's like a French car. If any one of you owns a French car, it's very sophisticated, but not very smart if you want to change batteries. In French robots, you have to take the head off and take a lot of parts apart, and then you can change the battery. But if the battery is within the robot, it works very nice. But we'll come to the robots in the latter part of this presentation. We have been talking, as you said, we have been talking about lifelong learning and e-learning and stuff like that for years. And we have been discussing what is it all about and how should we define this thing. Are we talking about connected learning, collaborative learning? A lot of people are talking about network learning, and the EU and different governments are now talking about digital learning, which I think it's not very good, because digital learning is when digital technology is learn something, so maybe we should accept that if governmental offices and European Parliament and so on think it's digital learning, then we can do whatever we want to do below that. I think it's all about learning, and technology is nowadays not something coming from the outside. It has become a sort of natural part of learning and the learning experience. 2 weeks ago, I was in the United States, and I participated in what is called EduCourse, a very, very big, very, very American conference about tendencies within technology and learning and so on. It took place in Florida, and it was extremely warm, about 40 degrees, very humid outside. And inside it was very cold because there was a lot of air conditioning. So I call it a kind of flu or cold or something like that. So therefore I'm speaking a little strangely. That's thanks to participating in the American conference. But apart from that, I also learned something, what is going on right now. Because when we go to these conferences, they are a very good place to identify tendencies and trends within this area. And most of the talking was about different ways of cloud computing and learning. How do we do that? And especially different Google application and how they could be integrated within learning. And this sort of changes the whole game because everything is cloud-based. You need very simple devices, but you also need to have people who are very knowable and keen on how to deal with these environments. I won't talk about that today. About MOOCs, massive open online courses, that has become part of everyday life, so there was only a very few small workshops on that issue. Whereas last year, I wasn't there last year, but last year 75% was about MOOCs, so it changes very rapidly. And then a lot of talking about makers, how do we educate young people to understand technology not only on the surface but also in a deeper way, which I touched upon the latter part of my presentation. When we talk about this e-learning, we say that we could define it in different ways, but it's a sort of planned learning which is fully apart, digitally mediated, and we do it because we want to improve the quality of learning, and quality can mean different things within the education and establishment. In general, it would mean something like improving the quality of learning, meaning that people learn more with less effort, or they learn at a deeper level. It would also mean that people have more access to learning, and then it should improve the effectiveness and especially the efficiency of the whatever you do to improve learning. The problem can be that sometimes the agenda and the argumentation is not, maybe we make e-learning in order to make learning cheaper, but we say that we do it because we want to make better learning. And therefore there can be a lot of things hidden underneath different efforts within the development of learning technology, e-learning, whatever you want to call it. I think it's very important to be precise about why are you doing this. And very often it's not a very planned effort. If you take something like MOOCs, you could say that why do we have MOOCs? Yes, we have MOOCs because it couldn't be otherwise. It's something which is natural that it is, or maybe not natural, but it's a prolonging of different tendencies. And they're not the result of a planned effort or at a strategic level. It's something emerging, coming up. And if we want to try to understand this, we could say because we have a long tradition of open educational resources, people getting access to open resources, initiatives from the United States, but also European initiatives that people can access learning materials. And that doesn't mean a lot because very often learning materials are very difficult to handle without you having a teacher. So it's sort of, you are not taking any risk in publishing open material. Things like the academy and things like that, different repositories, but very much also the cultural phenomena that we nowadays try to find out things through the internet, that if you face a problem that would be a scientific problem or a problem in your own household, you will not ask your neighbor, you will ask the internet. This dishwasher is not working properly, and you go to YouTube and see how could you solve this problem. And I've done that a lot of times, and very often it generates a lot of income for more technically educated people, because then I start to repair it, and then after some time my wife will tell me that I should call an electrician or something like that, and he'll come and ask me, why have you done that? Have you been looking at the internet? Yes, I said, don't do that, call me instead. But it's part of our doing with the world today that we use the internet as an instructor, as a teacher. So like popular mechanics back in the 50s and 60s, the internet as a teacher. If people get diseases, they also use the internet as a doctor because they go to the doctor and so on. And then there's an urge for validity and authentic content. The people want the real thing. They don't want something which is mediated through different teachers, mediators and so on. if they want to know something about something, they want the authentic thing, they read no prize taker explaining this or that, and so on. So all these tendencies brought together sort of generated this MOOC thing. And also, most of you are familiar with that this initiative started back in 2008 with some people from Athabasca, the Open University in Canada, presenting an open course on connectedness learning, Siemens and Siemens and the other one was
Downs.
Yes, thank you. What they experienced that a lot of people wanted to participate in this, so it started up something like that. And then on the other hand, we had the initiative from Stanford University on artificial intelligence, which in a very short period of time had a lot of participants, 160,000 as far as I remember. And these two things sort of started this process. And they also represent two different ways of doing things. The Canadian one, a very open, network-based, knowledge-building approach, and the American thing, a more sort of structured, almost behaviorist way of doing things. And in between these two areas, there have been a variety of different ways of doing this. But in common, they have something in common with the openness and the online, that it is online, and sometimes it's not so. I see at the conference in Florida, I was in a workshop where we discussed MOOCs, and there was one from Ohio State University, and she was running a MOOC with 80,000 participants, and which she was a medium-sized MOOC. And I was very happy. She didn't ask how many participated in our MOOC, because we had one with 30 and we had one with 180, so we don't, it's different. It's not so massive. It's a small open online course or something like that. This has grown, and presentation of the difference between the two approaches, and we have a different varieties of big open online courses, small private online courses, synchronous, and so on and so on. At my place, we are especially working with what we call ROOCs, regional open online courses, to face the challenge of education and competence development within more remote areas where they used to have access to educational institutions, but these have been centralized, so there's a lack of opportunities for developing competences there. And the growth is very big, as more of you know, but it's until now it has been very much an American thing. In Europe, if you go back to the beginning of this year, there's a sort of survey of how many European MOOCs were offered. And as you can see, in the Nordic area and Nordic Baltic area, we are not very strong on this, whereas people like in Spain, and they have access to a very big market because a lot of people are speaking Spanish, they have more. I think it has changed now, but like in Norway, at that time they had one MOOC, maybe there was some more, but I participated in one conference where we were a lot of people from Denmark, Norway, Germany, and so on, and we were discussing this how many? 7. Okay. So it's developing, and it means change to our institution. Very often initially this has been started off as a way of sort of branding educational institutions, but now it's starting to change things. And it sort of challenges our understanding of education, the teacher, the lecturer, and so on, and what is education about. Can we talk about, as we often do in a European context, about Bildung and things like that when we are working in this way? or does this mean that education becomes a very functional thing? And there's been a lot of criticism against this MOOCs, especially from the more established digital learning community. And that is very strange, but it's probably understandable in a more psychological way that in the old days, and I was part of that community, people who was working with distance learning and lifelong learning, it was a small tribe, all of us almost knew each other, and you were talking about how this would change the world and bring democracy into education, and then suddenly it changed, and everybody was doing something which was distance learning. And what about us and some of these people who represented the older they don't understand anything about distance learning, and they don't know the theories at all. And they are probably right in that. And on the other hand, one would say that distance learning has never been very strong on theory, and so I think one should try to embrace this and say, well, now things are changing, and we might experience a real change in the way the universities and educational institutions in general are working, and we might also learn something from the old ones. This is Otto Peters. He was head of Fernuniversität Hagen, the German Open University. Grew up in Berlin and had very bad experience during World War II, and so that this openness and open university, inspired by the British Open University, should change the world and give people access to education. And he had written some very important things on distance education. And he's known for different things, but one of the things he's known for is that when we talk about distance education, we talk about a sort of industrialization of education, meaning that we have a different way of working. We have a different division of labor when we talk about distance learning. We have someone who develops this, we have some technicians, we have someone who delivers this, we have some who do the guidance and so on. And this is different from traditional teaching. It means that in a lot of ways it's a more professionalized way. And if we use this approach to the MOOC phenomenon, you could say that in the ex-MOOCs, the big ones, you say this is, in a way, this is a very traditional industrialization of education. But on the other hand, it is a modern traditional industrialization. It's like McDonald's or something like that. You have a franchising a lot of open courses out, you take them together, and you offer them to people, and you earn, and you're the middleman in between earning. But you give authenticity to these courses. Instead of a small institution offering this, it is with the backing of a big American university. On the other hand, we have CMOOC, which is maybe a more traditional way of doing things, or maybe it's an even more modern way of doing things, letting the users, the consumers of learning be the producers, so they become sort of prosumer, producing and consuming at the same time. They are more agile model. So in a way, what we could learn from Peters is that we should try and look at the infrastructures behind the way we change our educational system. So if we want to do this, one could say that we have to reorganize our institutions. We have to do things in a different way, where until now we had a lot of teachers, lecturers and so on, and they did almost the same thing on an individual basis. They have to work closely together now and supplement each other in their competences. So it's a new challenge for education, it's a new challenge for lecturers, teachers and so on. And in order to this to happen, you need to have a strong vision at a strategic level. You also need strong champions who sort of brings this through, but the champions alone cannot do this. You need a sort of tactical scaffolding at the middle level in the organization, supporting the people doing the things, and then operational ownership. Because it calls for new traditional labor, a change in culture in our institution. So one could ask, is this a better deal for academia, for lecturers and so on? Not necessarily, but it's a different deal. It means something else. You have new assignments. This is San Jose State University 2007. Some of us were there. We were participating in a delegation to that place. And that was when all this happened for this, it's a rather big university, maybe not in the very top league of American League of American University, but it's a good university, a good local support, and a lot of programs and so on. And they're trying to change this from within, and they were talking a lot about this. They wanted to check in resources from MOOCs and change the work of teachers and lecturers and so on. And that generated a very, very strong resistance from the staff. They didn't want to go from being lecturers to be sort of counselors or providing guidance and so on. And so this became a sort of internal struggle within the university. It took some time before they came out, and they had to change the model and empowering the staff much more. And for me, this was a lesson in that if you want to make these changes, you have to bring staff into the process and not necessarily, you have to bring staff into the process and empower them to be part of it. But it is a challenge, and you will always meet stuff like this. We do it, we make moves, especially in teachers training, participating in Riga development, and this has meant that a lot of our teachers have developed from being teachers to be content developers, subject matter experts. This means not small, medium-sized enterprise, but subject matter experts. Developing the content of these. We have some have developed into instructional designers and didactic designers. So in a lot of ways, this is changing our institution. And we have very good reception from the surrounding world, because people think that they can access education even though they are in a kind of economic situation, they are remote, they cannot access education. In other words, also the authenticity of this, and they are able to sort of design this their own way, so it coordinates with their life apart from the education. So that was educators. It means that we have to understand changing education as a process of organizational development. Another classic education is Michael Moore. He was British, he was in Australia, then he was at Open University in the United Kingdom, and after that he was at Penn State University in the United States. And he had developed this framework of transactional distance, meaning that what is called by the individual learner when we work in distance learning, the more structure, the more autonomy is called for. If you have very structured processes and if you have less dialogue, you need very autonomous learners who are capable of doing things themselves. And if we apply this, and if you have a less structure and a lot of dialogue, like in campus or on campus, you can do a lot to sort of adjust the course for the individual learning. And if we apply this theory to MOOCs, you would say that, well, this is maybe a different thing. I mean, here we have structure, but structure means different things. For some, it means that they have the opportunity to sort of structure the process themselves. If you have a very strong structure, it's easy to see what to do, and you can choose, or you can choose not to do things and structure things that way. And the question of dialogue is also the same thing, not the same thing, but familiar to that the question of dialogue is very dependent on yourself, that you have to create space for dialogue peers to peers. Of course, there should be a design structure underlying from the provider, but then it's not so that saying, now we discuss this, that won't happen. You have to be very motivated to do this. And therefore, MOOCs are addressing a specific kind of learners who are very motivated. That can be either because that's the only way they have access to learning. It can be people from third-world countries and so on. Through this way they have access to learning, and it can be people who are very busy at their job, so they want to sort of structure according to that. Or it can be combinations of these two. But this sort of calls for a very strong didactic design from the provider saying, what is all this about? And I'll move back to that. Yeah. Just this is more or less what we discussed about. Then the third one, the presence, if we go back to the Niels, he said that if you want to understand the learning, you have to see it as a psychological as well as sociological process. And most of us, I think, have a kind of understanding of learning as something taking place inside and together with some other people and how these interact. And how does this happen if people are remote from you? And Garrison and Terry Anderson developed this model some years ago saying that, and this has also been very criticized, that if you want to create successful educational experiences, especially in a distant learning environment, you have to have a combination, not of all of these three, but two of them. You either have to have social presence and teaching presence, or teaching presence and cognitive presence. And by cognitive presence, they mean a very well-structured format of the learning experience. Present means that you are there, and presence is not necessarily a physical thing. You can be very present at distance. I had a friend who wrote a PhD thesis on presence, and she came up with something like, it's better if you have physical presence than when you have virtual presence. But when she was, after she had presented her thesis and all that, we had a private conversation, parties and all that. And she was then telling about that she was driving home. She lived in a remote area, it was snowing, and she was talking to a friend on her mobile phone. And it was in the middle of the winter time, so the road was very slippy. And so suddenly her car turned around, but she carried on talking to her friend there. For some time, then suddenly she said, well, I think we have to stop here because my car was turned around. So then I asked it, well, if you go back to your thesis and compare this experience here, where your presence was thus strongest in your phone conversation with your friend on a far distance, or by your car driving. And she said, I have to admit, I was more closely knit to my friend on the phone. And of course, most of you have experienced that. When people are talking on the mobile phones, they sort of create their own space there. If you drive together with them in a train, they sometimes tend to forget that there are other people, and you can learn a lot of their private life problems with their drive. So Well, the idea here is that if you want to have a design, you have to think about it. How do we create social presence? And of course, in the connectivist approach, they have a lot of emphasis on that. But what they claim here, and I think they are right, that is not enough, because if you just have social presence, you don't have, it's not moving forward, so you're not learning new things and so on, you're just sort of participating. If you only have teaching presence, if you only have dialogue with the teacher, it doesn't become your own, and if you only have cognitive presence, you might learn at a sort of superficial level. So you need two of these and combine these when you design learning experiences. And if you go out and look at what is happening out there, you say that sometimes you need didactic support for people participating in a more traditional move. And of course there should be a strong cognitive design there, but there should also be support in the social and teachers' presence. In most of the cases where we are working in a sort of hybrid where organizations want change and therefore they engage in developing moves together, because that can either be that they want to have some qualifications developed among their staff and so on, but very often the combination is then they also want to sort of develop the organization to have stronger knowledge and so on. And this calls for a very strong sort of external didactic design. It's very important that we create very solid structures to support this, because otherwise it just becomes sort of experience and then it disappears again. So all the time we have to reflect on how do we support this and how do we articulate this support and how do we develop scaffolding for that process. So if I look at our case, the things we are doing, I would say that we could identify conceptions, which would be something like, first we create a tentative MOOC, we try it out, we have different iterations with different user groups and so on, and then we have a MOOC and we put the MOOC on the internet and someone participates. So we have a MOOC there, and some people participate in that. But for us, the important thing is here that awakes interest among the different parts of the society. And then they come to us and say, could we do it a little different, or could we do it together, and so on. So very often we take the open MOOC, which is the real MOOC, and convert it too close to it. And why do they need that? They need that because people don't want to expose what they are not capable of. I mean, when we have training of primary and secondary teachers, and they have taught math for many years, and they're participating in a course, they don't want to know so other people can see their lack competencies and so on. So we make an open MOOC, and then we combine it with a closed MOOC. So we have, the first one we use for general public, but also for marketing. The second one we typically will use for a combination of organizational development and competence development. So you could say, one could say that it is local closed online courses. I don't know, the abbreviation is not very nice. And then the next step comes that when we have developed all this, it sort of turns into flipped learning, because then the teacher at the traditional education says, why are we not using this in classroom? We have very good content here. It should be brought into also the education of teachers and nurses at the basic level, and we do that. But if we had done it otherwise, if we had started off by saying this should be used in the classroom, training our young teachers and nurses, we would have generated so much resistance from the start. But coming in because they want to, they have their own ownership, they have been developers on this. So our business case is not one business case, and that's very often they talk about MOOCs. What is the business case then? Of course, we are setting sort of examination, we are setting guidance and so on, but it's more like a comprehensive thing where we develop this as the core of our activities. It could be formatted as a MOOC, a massive open online course. It could be formatted as a closed course together with the organization, or it could be used within traditional education. So by that, it's for us a very strong business case. And our value proposition here will mostly be that we think that we are very good at didactic designing learning situation and transferring learning from this mixture of message situation and into something which makes sense for the participants. We think that we can address the learning situation and we can combine this individual and organizational learning. And we think what we are offering now is first and foremost this. We are not within one of the big organizations like Udacity or edX or something like that. We are using our own platform. We're thinking about moving into Canvas, but we haven't decided on that yet. Right now we are using the Google platform in combination with different Google stuff. End of platform. Second. Questions? Yes?
It wasn't quite clear to me what a closed MOOC is. I know you were talking, but I probably missed something. But would you mind repeating what a closed MOOC is?
A closed MOOC is when we take a MOOC and we take the one O out, meaning open. So it's a massive online course, but it's not open any longer.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah, then we sort of formatted towards the needs of the local institutions.
Okay, so it's, in other words, it's kind of like a formatted MOOC.
Yeah.
For local needs.
It is not a MOOC any longer because you take these components out, then formally it wouldn't be a MOOC.
Okay, and so it would need to be something that has, a MOOC that has public access.
We're starting out by creating a MOOC which has public access.
Yeah.
And then we think, and some people come and they participate in them, and then people come from like the municipalities or primary and secondary school, they could do something like this for us. Then we take the content and we reformat it and we close it because they don't want to have it open to the public access.
Okay, all right, so it becomes kind of like, it becomes territorial, you might say.
Blended learning, online learning, but it initiated from a MOOC.
So it becomes a closed garden.
Yeah.
You had some examples. I think we talked about some municipalities or...
Yeah, the big thing right now in Denmark is that if you are primary and secondary teacher, in the old days you were allowed to teach in whatever you wanted to teach in, so to say. But now they all have to teach in what had been their subject matter at the teachers training college. And a lot of teachers only have two subjects and they need a third subject. And that's a very, very big assignment. It's a task for the municipalities and therefore it's very costly for them. So they want to sort of, if they should use all these resources to train their teachers to do this, they want to have some further benefits like developing the educational institutions and so on. So it initiates by saying, well, we're taking this subject matter at teacher training college level, but we're combining it with local development group, creating new learning environments around and so on. And they have funding for that. Yes?
I'm wondering how you work with learning analytics related to MOOCs.
Not very much. Actually, we have that we should do. We're trying to build that up, but right now we're beginners.
That's why I asked if we have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're moving into something else. Robots. 10 minutes.
Yeah.
10 minutes.
Yeah, 10 minutes.
Crash course in robots.
No problem, 10 minutes.
That is a robot. It's called Sino. Robots in teaching addresses some of the stuff we have just been touching on, but also different things. We have worked a lot with robots, and you can do that with different things. In Korea, they use them as teachers. That would never work in Denmark. Pupils would sort of shortcut them or something. You can use them as learning media, and you can use them as creating learning experiences. This is the Korean robot. It's not a robot, it's a teacher presence thing. On the Philippine Islands, there are sitting a lot of people who speak very fluent English. They teach Korean pupils in Korea. That's cheap. Instead of importing a lot of English-speaking teachers, and Korean pupils behave better than Denmark. So, I think the important thing is about this is developing technological literacies, digital literacies. Then we have something on special emphasis on care and representation. And then sort of major competences among preschool and school children, and then also in special needs. I'll focus here on point 1.1 and .3. There are no dots. I take the dots out because I've been on the course thing. You shouldn't make many calls on the dots. A robot is a very special kind of technology. Of course, it's just a piece of technology like anything else. It creates fascination. We have no prejudice. So, building a mechanical device which would be our servant, but we also create anxiety. People know whether they take over. It's a technology which the watch becomes part of the individual. It's not like a watch or computer or mobile phone or pair of glasses, whatever you need. It becomes part of you. You stop thinking about that. You have this technology. And there's a lot of philosophy about that. But robots are different because they do not become part of you. They sort of become part of themselves. They become individualized. So they can become part of us instead of part of the individual, or they can just be rejected. Saying, well, we don't want to do anything about it. There are different ways of defining it. This is the International Standard Organization definition. This is my definition. It's not so important here. This is what it is about. It's the stuff that monsters know. This is a drawing of a thermostat made by a young 9-year-old child in an undergrad from a very high university, and the understanding of the thermostat. Of course, if it was a student at Riga Technical University, they would know much better because they have gone technical knowledge. We have a lot of students who have sort of surveys competencies. And one of the persons we could blame for this is Mark Frenzy, who said this about the digital natives. They have all kinds of competence. They speak the language of new technology, and of course that is correct, that when you meet young people, they know a lot about technology. And they speak the language of it, but they don't understand the semantics and the syntax of technology. Therefore, they have a sort of surface understanding of technology. It's surface digital literacy at a surface. They have lack of understanding of technology. So I think we should start to teach much more in programming in primary and secondary school. That's very important for children to know programming. There are a lot of skeptical people sitting around saying, why should they know programming? If they don't know programming, they don't understand the nature and the way digital technologies work. But should they become programmers? Yeah, some of them should become programmers, but that is not the reason. It's like when we don't teach people their mother tongue, English or Finnish or Latvian or whatever, for them to become writers and authors, to understand the society they're living in. It's the same with mathematics and so on. They are living in a very technical and very wrapped technical world where they have to understand some of the underlying mechanics there. And robots is a very good thing for that, because kids want to communicate with robots, and in order to communicate with robots, you have to be able to program and understand programming. So it's a very motivational thing. We're working with these two robots. I'll show you maybe.
Hello, my name is Richard Margold. I'm the Director of Engineering for OLRO.
This is one of the robots we are working with. This is a robot which sort of generates a lot of fascination among children. For some adults and some children, it also generates a lot of anxiety because it's so in a very strong memory interface. It's talked a lot. But in order to communicate with it, you have to understand basic programming, and the more complex communication you want, the more you have to learn about that. So it's a very strong motivational factor for kids and children to learn. Of course, you can also use more constructivist approaches. I can also work constructivists. I won't put that here or take minds and so on. So if you do this very fast crash course from robots, you could say that the robot motivates for programming. If you want to communicate with the robot, you need to understand and develop programming at different levels. That is the basic idea about bringing robots into the classroom, and because it's a sort of a way of opening up for digital literacy at a different level. So what I've been talking about here today is firstly the MOOCs, and secondly, very shortly, about the robots. It's about constructing learning, designing learning environments, using technological potential for improved learning, and both of these approaches calls for very strong didactic design. We need a lot of theory and practice in developing learning. And therefore, I think people like us gather together today, even though the world is changing, we will still be needed. Thank you.